You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
Hello, and welcome to Volume 6 of Comedy Album Book Club. This is the monthly show where we listen to an influential comedy album and then talk about it. If you're listening to the podcast, you should first do as we have just done and check out the album 2,000 Years with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. This is their first album produced in 1960. Consisting of a series of interviews, essentially, with various characters. It's the first recording of the 2,000-year-old man routine. That's a bit that Reiner and Brooks started improvising at parties in the 1950s, and the character has appeared on all of their albums, most recently in 1997, and even spawned an animated special in 1975. Mel Brooks, of course, is known for being the co-creator of the classic TV series Get Smart, and as a writer-director of some of the most successful comedies in the 70s and 80s, like Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, and Spaceballs. He's been in show business for almost 70 years. Carl Reiner started a year before Brooks in 1948. He wrote and performed in such TV Golden Age classics as Caesar's Hour and Your Show of Shows. And he's also the creator, writer, producer of The Dick Van Dyke Show, which he also starred in. And he co-wrote several movies with Steve Martin, including The Jerk. And he's had numerous acting careers spanning 7 decades in show business. So that was 2,000 Years with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, and it was chosen by my first guest, my featured guest. Please welcome Dan Hirschfield. Dan is a writer, performer. He's done a one-man show called Sloneliness. Can we also say the other thing that you do, your day job?
Oh, sure, I guess so.
And he writes for the Naked News, which is really what this whole podcast is about. Yes, we're now going to derail this and talk about nothing but the Naked News for 90. Okay, so Dan, tell us about either Sloneliness or the Naked News. I'll let you decide, or something else you're working on.
What else am I working on? So I'm just a writer generally. I guess Sloneliness I can tell you about. So that was my one-person show, because I think it sort of ties in, because in my mind, it was a show basically about social anxiety, because it's about when I met. So I was working on a cruise ship, and
we can't do the whole show.
Do the whole thing.
Yeah,
yes. Okay. I'll start from the beginning. Met Chris Murphy, got very intimidated because I'm Jewish and neurotic.
All right, that's very succinct.
I'm good.
Right on. Okay, we'll come back to you in a second, Dan. My second guest, please welcome comedian, executive producer of the She-Dot Festival, Martha O'Neill. How are you, Martha?
I'm great. How are you?
Great.
Thanks
Welcome back. This is your second time on the
appearance.
podcast.
This might be a thing.
I think you're the only person besides me who's been on more than once. So,
I feel very special, even though I didn't get the number one seat. Whatevs.
Not this time. But you're
for the chosen people.
I think she might be gunning for the host of this show, so I better watch my back. Watch my back. My back is very clean. Tell us a bit about the She-Dot Festival.
The subtitle is Toronto's Festival of Funny Women, and we we do an all-women comedy festival, a stand-up improv sketch. We've had storytelling in the past. We're actually entering our 5th year, and we've decided this will be our last year. But we're going to keep doing shows. We do shows throughout the year. We do album records. We might take it on the road. And it's just promoting female comics and comedy in general.
Sounds rad to me. How rad is that? Cool stuff. Awesome.
Yeah.
And my third and final guest, well, for this show, we're going to keep doing this.
It's my final time here. My first and final time here. Already.
He's a writer, performer, half of the comedy duo Read Along with Browning, one of my favorite names in comedy. I love that. Because the other guy is Matt Reed, who is here tonight. Hi, Matt. But it's not about you. It's about Sean. How are you, Sean?
I'm
Welcome,
good.
Sean Browning, please.
Thank
folks.
you.
Good man.
Thank you.
So, Sean,
Yeah.
you've been doing this Read Along with Browning thing on and off for how long?
I think 99 was our first.
That's a nine.
I
So
believe so.
1999.
1999.
No, 99 years.
99. 2000. No, we 1999. Yeah, and
So almost
we've,
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We-
And
we've-
how long are the gaps sort of in between?
the gaps were long, but we did little we do little like appearances here and there throughout.
Cool.
Matt was the musical director of Second City,
Right,
for like
which
a
took up a
decade.
lot of his time,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I had 3 children, which
Sure.
took up a lot of my time.
Right.
My kids are in school, and he's on to bigger and better things, and we are getting back together to do more shows.
Exciting.
Yeah.
When's your next one? Do you know?
But February 20. I'm looking at Matt here now going 20,
All right.
28. We have the musical comedy festival.
Well, they have 10 days to guess.
yeah.
The 20s are only,
Yeah.
there's only 10
Yeah, we're
20s
doing a
in
mu- a
February.
musical
Oh, no,
comedy
even
festival,
less.
yeah.
How many days in February this year?
4 or 5. I don't know.
Yeah, it only leap year goes to the 24th,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. All right, so this album, Dan, we'll start with you. Why did you choose this? You hadn't heard it before.
I hadn't
believe.
heard it before, but just it felt like something I should have heard. It feels like my birthright, for lack of a better term. Yeah, I mean, I love them both individually, and it always struck me like the 2,000-year-old man. Like, it's very iconic as a bit, but it's just such a perfect premise. Just
Yes.
isn't it, like, that you can for riffing. Like, my background was as a performer was mostly as an improviser, and it's just sort of this perfect little setup that you can just run with forever. And I mean, you got into the story a little, but yeah, they used to it was something they did at parties. It was something like
Right.
a backroom thing that just became, someone, I'm trying to remember the story. I think it was Steve Allen who like persuaded them to actually record it. And yeah, it just became this phenomenon. So it's I guess the 3 things. 1, it's an improv. 2, it is that idea of, bringing like, what the comedians actually find funny amongst themselves and bringing it to an audience. And 3, it's extremely, extremely Jewish. which I've been riding on for a long time. Because when you can sound like this and, not sound like you're being racist when you do it, people will think you're funny and it's wonderful.
I'm so glad you're doing that, not me. Thank you.
Exactly. That's
for taking
because I can.
Yes, you can. That's another part of your birthright. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was, it was sort of the forefront of comedy was a lot of Jewish writers and comedians at that time. Like part of the first television comedy shows, like Sid Caesar, is sort of a breeding ground for a lot of comedians. And yeah, there was sort of I don't know if a Jewish comic sensibility is a genre, but
I think so. Yeah, you have your show of shows, like the Marx Brothers, like you have a lot of that, that came out of the, like the Yiddish theater and and vaudeville, and they sort of, I don't want to say the Jews run Hollywood now or that they necessarily did entirely that, but they kind of did. Like that was sort of the sensibility. It was really the.
What do you find that's identifiable in that particular type of comedy? Like there's sort of the tropes of the guilt and the overbearing mother and things like that. But what else is there?
I mean, I think that's. That's sort of the big things. I mean, I guess the thing, it's funny because I think it also applies to Jews. I think it also applies to Canadians, strangely, which is why we do so well in comedy because we're sort of that, we pass, we exist, we look so much like, as Canadians, we're so much like Americans. As Jews, we're so much like everybody else, but we know that we're a little different.
Yeah.
So we have that little observer from inside.
Right.
status. Like I noticed that in some of these, like in some of the bits, like the astronaut and like in a coffee house where he's sort of talking about how like like Mel Brooks' character, how ugly he finds himself. Like he essentially finds himself like a monkey, and he's like that, where he's the stand-in, like, or that they're like, they hire these handsome wasp actors to play the astronauts, but really it's, these hideous Jews. I think there is
hideous Jews.
So I mean, I think whatever, not to belabor the point, but I mean, I think there is something where like Jews who find themselves drawn to comedy have that like anxiety, but we sort of learn to
very self-deprecating, right?
Yeah, we make fun of ourselves, and
the outsider thing too, a little bit. Like Canadians, we're kind of feel like the outsiders in North America, or at least Canada, United States. Religious groups, I think, find themselves outsiders. If I mean, I'm Catholic, and we are not funny, but so not funny.
But we both have guilt.
We do. Oh, I can relate to the Jewish guilt. But I think it's that outsider view that makes comedy, and that's why there's so many great Canadians and maybe great Jewish comedians, and that, but also wanting to have attention. After years of "don't ignore me."
I'm an atheist, and we're all hilarious.
Says you.
Says you. Oh, but we're judging. Dan and I are judging.
Well, no, actually, I'm an atheist too.
Yeah,
which is also the funny
I don't
thing.
go to church.
Which is also the funny thing with Judaism, where like I'm a Jew without doing anything that would make me Jewish, except that I happen to have been born that way.
Well, but also you probably partake in a lot of the communal traditions, right? Like, because Judaism started as a sort of a community thing, not just about religion, right? Or they're sort of tied together?
I mean, I think it definitely started as it was a religion, but then, also as people as we got chased around Europe, it also became clear that there was a bit of a racial component to it, or,
right.
It's a cultural,
it's a cultural
based
thing
on
as well.
tradition.
And definitely more now. And I do, like, it's funny. I mean, another reason I think maybe Jews become comedians, I mean, there is the rite of the bar and bat mitzvah, which, I don't know. I mean, I guess other religions have some equivalent, but I mean, basically, you deliver like a sermon when you're like 13. You stand in front of an audience and you like, you have to do have to do a solo performance at a pretty formative age.
Now, if you had a child as an atheist, would it be expected from your family that child would have to do that? Would you?
Well, it would depend on my wife in that sense. Or sorry, not to be. Whatever.
Yeah. No, the wives call all the shots.
Family.
I got it.
Oh, no, I just meant that I don't necessarily need to be married to have a child.
Right.
But, so it would depend. I mean, Judaism is a matrilineal religion. So if the mother was not Jewish, then technically the child wouldn't necessarily be considered Jewish. Depends what branch of Judaism you belong to.
So let's say the wife, let's say you married a woman wife, just to keep it simple. Okay. Sorry, I know it's gender normative, but just to
or not married, just knocked up, whatever.
And the mother is Jewish like you, but also an atheist.
Yes. Would we be expected?
Yeah. Would there be pressure from parents or your friends?
I think they'd. It's funny. Yes. Let's discuss my religion.
What would you be comfortable with?
It's funny because I haven't even gotten to so much to the bar or bat mitzvah, where I sometimes think I'd have the dilemma is circumcision.
Yes, right.
Because maybe that's another reason Jews are funny. We're trying to get something back that was taken from us at such a tender age. But it's, and again, there would be that expectation. And it is a funny, where you have that, that
comedy comes from tragedy too, right?
It's true. Early pain. They get you. And that's also done in front of an audience, which is also, because I guess a lot of people are circumcised, but you're having it done in front of,
And do people generally laugh?
Glad it's
not
laugh,
me.
some faint. Everybody's eating.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a weird marriage of things going on. Okay, that's probably enough of that.
Well, it's actually interesting because if you in the very first sketch, he in the 2,000-year-old man, there are some digs at religion. That are there, which shows that even with Mel Brooks, who really got into that Jewish character of speaking.
Well, pretty much every character he did was that. Yeah,
but he even was like he was there for the beginning of religion, and talking about the Star of David being how they made it to bashing people together and the cross.
And he would have been on board with the cross if he thought it was up to something. Yeah,
and I talked about it like it was such a business.
Yeah,
it's such an elegant.
That religion is a business.
But it turns out it's a really nice
and what's great about that too is that it's so timeless because you're talking about something that's so old, but these ideas never get old. The idea of sort of capitalism and making a buck off anything you can. And
well, it wasn't until about halfway through the album that I actually questioned what year it was. I mean, I knew it wasn't recent, but
Right.
it wasn't until actually he started. What bit? I actually wrote it down.
you mentioned Nixon.
Oh, he was talking about Nixon, and then talking about pretending when he was the German plantation, and he was talking about he was a Nazi,
Yeah.
and I was like, I wonder what year this was, like how many years after World War II
Right.
this was recorded,
Yeah.
because it's interesting how much in the conversation World War II was, especially Nazis.
Sure.
25 years later. 50
Well, it was no, I think it was 15.
Okay, 15. You're right.
So,
You're doing math.
and not I was thinking about the same thing, and I mean not to bring the room down, but it occurred to me. So I was trying to put it in a context, and it's like, that's about the same time between now and 9/11.
Yeah.
and they're making like full on
jokes.
Nazi jokes.
Yeah.
Well, and that was a basis of a lot of Mel Brooks' work. I mean, if you look at
the producers for
the
sure.
the producers, there's
Springtime for Hitler,
even in Blazing Saddles, there's the whole Nazi dancers. There's, I mean, this is a big part of his work, To Be or Not to Be. It was constantly a theme, which just shows that he was he was very well read when it came to history, and very well versed in
Also
what he was
bold. I mean, there's the whole concept
Yes.
of too soon. I don't know if I'd do a 9/11 joke on stage right now.
I mean, the Hot Shots movies did a lot of stuff with what was his name? Saddam Hussein and the Gulf War stuff.
right.
But that wasn't on North American soil, and I think people are a little bit more sensitive about that. Yeah, I don't think I've heard. I mean, maybe once or twice I've heard a 9/11 joke, and it's usually met with ooh, you know. And that was 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be 17 years ago this September.
And interesting, the astronaut piece is before Americans were in space too.
Yeah, that was.
So
Yeah.
I liked how he was
that
going to
was
be
great.
flung higher than billboards. That was,
yeah.
that was a great line.
Yeah, fly over the buildings. I love that idea too. Yeah, that we've never really been much higher than that. And that's
I have to say that was probably my favorite sketch in the whole.
Oh, is that right? The
I just
astronaut?
love the fact that Brooks plays it so enthusiastic and positive. Even when he's like saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna die," he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh, but it's great. Like it's just like this eager, like I'm so happy that this is gonna happen.
I loved his specificity too. Like he really, like early on, I was like, wow. Like which one was it? He talked about in the first one. He was talking about the nectarines. Holy God, that was so funny.
that was brilliant.
But like really specific. What else? He picked his date, his birthday. He said, I'll be 2000 in October 16th.
Yeah,
Like,
that's such a great. Yeah.
he named the guy Bernie, the guy who discovered women. Like I love that
Who
specificity.
discovered the first female?
And I think we all Bernie. Yeah. But I love how that's a gift, and then he calls it back. The nectarines. He said, "I'd rather it was a rotten nectarine than a ripe plum." Like,
and then he
beautiful.
just riffs on nectarine for and it's great how he does that. And I was thinking about that because I love the fact that they used to this came from something they did at parties. And it made me go, I wish I was alive at that time, coming up with stuff at parties. Because we do that all the time when we're, but you could get a career out of it back then. Now we just get thrown out of the place.
Did any of you
'cause
guys
it's 2 o'clock,
see the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? I mentioned it to you earlier, Sean. Marvelous. Do you guys watch
No,
that?
I've heard it's great.
Wonderful
It's
things,
wonderful. But there's
It's an Amazon series, is that right?
Amazon, yeah. But here they do that. She kind of meets up with a guy at some point in the series, and they do that. They kind of entertain at parties, but they intend to do it like it's a planned thing. And it was a fascinating thing that I didn't even know existed.
You get invited to parties just to do that.
Yeah.
Well, parties are different now.
We got a guy who does magic around,
Yeah.
And they weren't paid. They were just given food and
Now we just all sit on a couch and get drunk.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same.
No, it's not. Parties are kind of lame in comparison. You can't make money off a party.
Let's do that again. Let's make parties where
Or
we
get a career out of
Well,
it.
that's more or less what we're doing now.
Unless no
guess so,
magic
yeah.
though. No magic. I hate magic. Oh.
But you really got that sort of throughout it. You got, in fact, every sketch you sort of got that. You've got the setup of Carl Reiner is the interviewer, and even though like he's doing the sort of Gentile character of like being very uptight and whatnot, and it sounds like he's trying to stump Brooks with his questions, doesn't it? Don't you get that? Like he's like,
there's definitely an improv sort of
very much
spirit
so.
to this. Now, they do crack up a couple of times, and clearly they're riffing a few times.
Well, there's that one joke too that kind of in this day and age kind of gets a little people going, but the way that Mel Brooks carries it through made me go, that actually was a real thing when he actually says lesbian instead of thespian.
Right.
Yeah, I think
but
he
then he's
invented
like,
that
but the line that he says after is like, I'm not going to forget that again.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he actually made that mistake. That was he really caught that.
My favorite joke is that part where he says, it was because it surprised me so much. It didn't feel like an obvious sort of setup and knockdown. Was the most popular mode of transportation was fear. That's a fantastic joke.
It is. Or just going on with like that he sets up this beautiful story, or this not a beautiful story, but he sets up this story of like how you carve the wood and you do this with the wood and you think it's going someplace, and then you just throw it at a tree. Yeah, like why? That's for entertainment.
There's nothing
else
else to do.
Although I got the impression that was his mental process. Like I think he thought he was going somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, where am I going with this?
No, I'm not going anywhere with it.
He could have chosen to invent the wheel or something like that.
And the fact that there's no payoff was probably the best payoff.
Yeah.
Well, I actually made a note of that. There were a lot of stories that kind of ended with no punch, no bow on it, which is unusual way of like comedy wouldn't fly now.
Yeah.
A few of them
There was a lot of, I noticed, like, too, just because it's like so anathema to what we do now in improv, but there were a lot where he just like bailed.
Yeah.
Like I remember
Goodbye.
it's like, what did each in Hebrew sound like, or what kind of stuff did you say? It's like,
Hi there.
riffed in English for a while. Hi there. And then he's like, no, Hebrew. And he's like, oh, I guess I forgot it. Like, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But he's like, but it's so charming. And it's like that you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
But I also didn't mind that they didn't all end on like a punch or an ending, because it's more of a storytelling type of comedy, and then all the jokes are along the way, right? And these days you hear a lot more people who are, you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping that joke works in that one sentence at the end, and then sometimes it doesn't. But this style is so cool.
Well,
there's just
I
stuff
think
flying all
it's
the
the
time.
charm, right? I think I don't know what you
Yeah.
said. They're so charming, and they clearly like each other a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Carl Reiner, oh my! I think we don't give him enough credit for just the gifts he gave Mel Brooks in that. Like he was handing him gift. What I wrote one down about the flies, the painting made of flies. Like what a gift! What a gift! Like I used to improv, and he's like, "Are those flies?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then it went off. It was like, what a gift!
Yeah, all he does is set him up.
That did seem like it was nice riffing back.
Yeah.
And forth. And these two guys, like if you don't know, these two guys were like best friends.
Still are.
And they still are.
Well,
I mean, one is 95 and one is 91, I think.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks is 91, Reiner is 95, and they're still best friends.
And still working.
They still like see each other like every day, apparently.
Yeah,
I think
there's
it's
a-
I haven't
so
seen the
beautiful.
comedians in
That's
cars
like-
getting coffee.
Yeah, that's a
but-
great episode where Jerry goes to, I guess it's Mel's house, and they've got their TV tables out.
I think it was
and
Carl's,
just-
but yeah.
it's
Yeah, I mean, so to have that sort of connection, you
Yeah.
know, when you go back there, it's like, okay, you go, if you just listen to it on the surface, you go, okay, Mel Brooks is the funny one, and Carl Reiner's a straight man. But if you, there really is an act, like it really is the two of them coming together. And Reiner really takes the bullet for it, because he doesn't get the credit as being, and
has so much reverence for it,
That's
like
right.
clearly, like because like I mean, every now and then he gets like the you're as good looking as 9 out of 15 people.
Yeah.
Like where it's
That's
like,
such a weird
just-
turn of phrase.
But it's just because you're assuming 10, and then it becomes 15. You know, like, it's just like, but it's just like glides right over. It's like just this brilliant comedy throwaway line, but like so you know that he can be knocking it out of the park, and we also know that from his bio. But no,
Sure.
he's just happy. Like I mean, he said, he thinks Mel Brooks is the funniest person he knows, and he just like in these bits,
Yeah,
he's just
there was another one like that. It just reminded me of that. I wrote down was 16 out of 19 people revolve around the sun. Right. Just riffing it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no,
what are
he's
the other
talking
three?
himself out of it. Well, the Earth doesn't actually go around. Well, actually, it does go around the sun.
That was another
The
mistake
moon-
I think you made.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, the moon goes around too, because everything goes around the sun. 16 out of 19 people don't go around the sun.
I noticed there were a lot of math problems, when because he's a 2,000-year-old man, and he said he's been married hundreds of times.
Oh yeah,
And has-
don't bother doing the math.
42,000 children.
So 21 a year.
Yeah, like that's
And
why
none of
is
them
he so
birth, from
prolific?
birth, yeah.
It's just 'cause
And
he's
none of them
old.
call him, which is like the classic
well,
joke. That was the
that's-
classic joke.
Yeah.
right there.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh
very.
well, so much of that.
But back then, it probably
That's a
wasn't the
very Jewish
classic
joke.
joke. You know?
Yeah, he may have
Right,
invented it.
1960.
I mean,
yeah.
I think like 70% of that bit is just him being an old Jewish man.
Yeah.
And then every now and then he's like, "Oh right, we're supposed to be talking
Yeah,
about
and then he,
historical things."
and then he leaps it up a little bit more, going, I'm going to take the old Jewish man, but make him way older.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he can be even more ridiculous.
Yeah, 42,000 kids who are calling instead of 2.
And let's have him riff about nectarines for like.
Yeah. Well, I also
You
love the
wanna
part
rot.
about Joan of Arc. Like that seemed to be sort of a classic,
We
like
went
Jewish
together.
uncle. He's like,
Went together.
Went together. Yeah.
you go save France and I'll wash up. That's so great. Such a passive
Yeah.
partner. So wonderful.
I have a question though. I have a note. During the last bit, the psychiatrist, and you guys all laughed hard. And I didn't hear it. He's talking about the DCR, like he wasn't a doctor. What was
He
that?
was a docker.
A docker.
Oh, a docker.
And he's like, okay, Docker. Docker held initial. Like he just kept now referring to him as Docker, which is not a thing. It doesn't mean anything. But I don't know. It's just so silly.
I just missed it.
Well, I downloaded this off of iTunes, and what happened was I was playing it on my headphones today, and I actually right at the beginning of that I looked over the Martha and said, "Okay, get ready for it because you're going to jump," and then it didn't happen. And
I know.
felt
I'm
really
like,
stupid.
okay, Sean.
But it's because in your headphones, when you get it off of iTunes, that scream that the patient has
woman
when they
coming
leave
out?
the building
Oh, right.
is really loud. And I jumped out of the seat. I was like, "What?"
He's like, be ready, be ready. I'm like,
I'm
what?
like, "Oh, everybody put your beers down on the floor, okay? Because this is going to be horrible."
I'm so glad you didn't do that. It would have been
I
so
did. And then
anticlimactic.
it was like, like, well, okay, it's remastered now. Okay,
I listened to the version on Spotify. Actually has skips on it. It sounds like someone just recorded it off of an old LP.
All right.
And I listened to it at headphones at home, and I enjoyed it so much more listening to it with a group. Like it's great to hear the laughter,
Yeah.
and to hear a remastered version is much more fun too. And I was ready to come out here and say I didn't love this, but hearing it the second time with the quality makes a big difference. Listening to it with other people is fun. It's like going to a comedy show and hearing all the laughter around you.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more fun.
Well, it was like Martha was saying about it not knowing what time frame it comes from. There were a lot of hints, but at the same time, like that, what was it, Fabiola?
Fabiola.
Yeah,
That must
That
have been,
didn't land very
that must
well.
have been specific.
No.
But
that
it
was a
could
weird
have,
one.
but it was short. But it could have. But
Yeah,
I
it
was
was
listening to that, going, this sounds like every celebrity interview I've seen in the last.
Yeah.
Right. I love being so self-important that you don't have time to look up
I don't know
how
how old
old
I
you
am.
are.
Yeah.
20 to 30.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to know this.
Well, I was thinking I watched this interview with Will Smith's son. Jaden.
Jaden.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
and that when I
He's
was listening to
totally
this,
Fabiola.
I was going, "Oh my God, this is that's who."
Yeah.
That's
Jaden Smith doesn't know how old
wow.
he is. I guarantee it.
1960s.
Doesn't he say something in that, like, something about mirrors, how mirrors aren't real or something like that? Or your eyes aren't real? Or,
Oh, it's like he's stoned all the time.
yeah,
Yeah,
he says the weirdest
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, but most of this record I found very accessible. A lot of this stuff is still... this is, what is it, it's almost 60 years ago, and they don't date it too much. Even though the astronaut thing is about the first set of astronauts, they don't linger on what it's like to be the first. It's just this poor schlub who is in
Yeah.
this situation. And they do that time and time again. And they mention Dick Nixon and things like that. And like you said, Martha, the Peruvian one, I think, maybe suffers a little bit because it's not quite as timely.
Well, I don't know if it suffers. I mean,
It's my
mind
least
you-
favorite one, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Fabiola was my least
Oh,
favorite.
second, please.
Well, no, I like the Nazi one, but I was just maybe curious about when this was recorded
Yeah.
more than anything. But then again, I'm of a certain age. Maybe
Yeah.
a 20-year-old wouldn't really understand it. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
also
know.
Mel Brooks even sounds Jewish as a German.
I know,
man.
it's funny.
Yeah.
So it took
Oh,
me
yeah.
a little bit to get that one, honestly.
In a coffee house was my favorite for that because like all the characters, it was fun to track like the progression because he would start with a character and then by the
then
end
just
they were
devolve into Mel
they were
Brooks.
just
They
doing
just
it.
devolve
Like,
into
it was like some happened right away, some
Yeah.
took a little while, but they all got there.
Yeah, he's not really known for his character voice.
Well, it's interesting because I actually my sister is a school teacher and she in high school and she teaches history, and there's a whole huge section on the Holocaust where they actually take them to museums and stuff like that.
Wow.
And they really spend a lot of time on it. So I don't think it's as untimely as you'd think.
Right.
Like I was listening to it going, like the content is World War II for sure, but if you they like all the kids today know about that stuff. Like it is
Right.
taught in school.
Right.
But on top of that, if you actually broke it down and transcribed that scene, if listening to Mel Brooks, it's genius. The stuff he's spouting out at such a quick pace,
Right.
with that German accent. The stuff's coming out of his mouth. It's like, oh my God. Like he knows his stuff.
yeah.
Like he's
Right.
really.
Oh, these are
Yeah,
smart men.
we sacked Poland in this amount of
Yeah,
time,
it was just
and
like wow,
we
and
took
he just
France
like and going off on it when he starts yelling and it was like
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy.
Well, if
I
I
guess-
remember his bio correctly, I mean, he fought in World War II. Like
Yeah.
he was like,
Yeah.
that's and
Yeah.
Yeah,
you were like,
they were both
I'm
soldiers,
sure
yeah.
Jews
Well, I
at
mean,
the time were pretty
one,
well versed.
one of his
but yeah,
movies
but-
that sort of doesn't get a lot of attention is To Be or Not to Be, and I don't know if you know that movie, but it's about it's with him and Anne Bancroft, and it's about World War II and in Germany at the time, and it's quite it's quite an interesting movie.
I don't know it.
It's not as funny as say Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein, but it is a real piece. You can see that's where his heart was.
Young Frankenstein is honestly one of my favorite movies of all time.
I showed my daughter Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
She's 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, this took a lot of, but they're taking all that stuff in school. Like, okay, keep in mind.
You're a bad parent, Sean.
Okay, how many times do I have to explain to you that you don't? And she figured it out, but I was like, but she still thought it was really funny. I mean, because it's just a ridiculous movie.
Yeah. Did you know? I mean, among the funny things. I love when anyway, just getting back to the Mel Brooks when the native is like. Doing his long speech and it's all in Yiddish.
Yes. Well, that's just what it is. I mean, it's the movie does have its place, right. And I love watching that. That to me, Mel Brooks playing the mayor in that movie,
governor. Yes,
the governor. With this one scene that always gets me, where he goes work, 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 work. Boy, he looks at the woman's breast and he's like, "What do you think, boy?" And this was like, but his eyes are crossed. It's work, 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 and now I laugh every time, and it's just because it's just. You see an actor really enjoying what they're doing and hamming it up, and everyone behind the cameras are laughing their asses off, going like, "This is Mel's being an idiot." Like we did this a few other times, and it was.
He's got a special kind of genius. Like he reminds me of like somebody's crazy uncle. Like not everything he says is brilliant, but the commitment and the character behind it makes you enjoy it because he's enjoying it. You know, another actor wouldn't sell the same lines the same way. It's because he's this perfect marriage of writing a performance.
But he's a pretty smart guy. Like he I mean, as you say, he gave up a few times on this album. Like he just gave like I don't even. But and Sean said his references were good, but the two of them, it's just I think Carl Reiner came across smarter in a way. Sure. Like but I was always impressed, like when the artist in the coffee house thing that he was talking about his dinner, but he remembered to say I laid it on a frame, because we're visualizing it, and they're very good at anticipating what will be the problem, and that impressed me throughout the whole thing.
That's an amazing thing about, to me, albums in the 60s. We talked about this with Bob Newhart and with Nichols and May, how it doesn't sound like they're going out of their way to be expository for the ear, but it was definitely written with that in mind. And it's amazing to me, that skill of just sounding so natural, like two people talking as if they were on television or right in front of you, but you have all the information you need all through your ears.
Now, do you think this was written or improvised?
I think there's definitely a framework. I don't know if they ever had anything written down. I feel like these guys just did this a million times together before they went to the album.
I think this is like one of the first, what I enjoyed about it as an improviser is this felt like the history of improv. Like this was like back before improv was really even a thing.
Right.
And these guys,
it took real guts to do something like that.
Like they go up and do this and just like, well, Reiner would just completely trust that Brooks was going to answer the questions he came and the naturalism.
I was trying to. I almost felt like he was trying to stump him again. With our improv backgrounds, like that's
But the naturalism, the naturalism of Mel Brooks, of just like whatever, okay.
They never rejected each other's offers. I was listening because I'm a former improviser, but they didn't. They never denied any offer. And it was pretty sweet.
No, and sometimes you could hear them enjoying it. Like they would laugh at the ridiculous thing, but they still just. They left that laugh behind, and as they move forward, you move forward too. It doesn't matter that they broke because they soldiered on.
Yeah.
22 men fell down and hurt their knees.
That was a great song. I love that song.
That's going to be stuck in my head forever. 22 men fell down and hurt their knees.
I cannot believe how well that bit works. To do that over
and it's so simple, and it's so like clean, and like there's nothing. It just was fun.
Yeah, and there's no actual note being played. And he says, I stick mostly to A.
That's great. Yeah, it's so great because like anticipating exactly what the audience is thinking. Just like saying something.
And I love the argument too. He's like, well, that was a lot like the first one you did. He's like, well, no, it's German men now. I mean, the knee's the same. You got me there. Okay, that part. All right, guys, we're going to take a short break so everyone can grab a drink if they need, go to the washroom, and we'll get anybody from the audience to write down questions if they have, and then we'll come back and answer those questions as best we can. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Comedy Album Book Club is recorded live on the first Thursday of every month at the Social Capital Theatre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Join us, won't you? We listen to the album at 9:30 p.m. and then we record the panel discussion for the podcast. Tickets are pay what you can, with some proceeds going to Covenant House, Canada's largest agency for at-risk homeless and trafficked youth. For more details, please visit us at comedyalbumbookclub.com. I'm Jason DeLine. Thanks for listening.
Yes, that's fine. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it. There's a can on the bar and there's a can by the door. Any can will do. We will check all the cans. We're not picky. We will take your money in any receptacle available.
I just fished a $5 out of the urinal.
I will take it. I will take that. That's nice. Give a nice pea-soaked $5 to the homeless kids.
I washed it. We can do that with our money.
Plastic money now, yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
I also assume the money's not going directly to them.
Probably no. I don't think they just hand out bills at the door and say good luck. No, that's not really how the program works. It's a little more to it. I hope.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you very much, sir. Excellent. Okay. Great. Welcome back to the second half of Comedy Album Book Club. No, you're right. No applause needed for the second half. See, now I can just cut out me
passive
saying...
aggressive there. That was
Always. Welcome to comedy.
Don't bother
Yeah, you
clapping.
thanked us once. We're fine.
Come on, guys. Dan's Jewish. He needs a little bit more...
That's right. You still like me, right?
And he's gorgeous. He's gorgeous.
Isn't he beautiful, ladies and
You can't
gentlemen?
see it.
Such a bonum.
He's single, ladies.
A face for podcast. That's
Oh, boy.
All right. This has all been a lot of fun. Welcome to part two. Okay, so we took a little break there. We've been rejuvenated. Some of us have put things in our lungs that we probably shouldn't.
Judgy.
And they've chosen to self-identify. I wasn't about to point any fingers. Martha O'Neill. Okay. We're having some fun now. Okay, we've got a few questions from the audience. Let's see what we got here. Any theories why this comedy has aged so well compared to comedy movies? That's interesting.
Oh, that is a good question.
Yeah, some of his, well, maybe some of the newer Mel Brooks movies I'm not a huge fan of. Dracula Dead and Loving I thought was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I have a soft
that's the irony with Mel Brooks. Like his movies have like aged well in reverse. Like the old ones are considered better than the new.
That's right.
ones.
He's got like a reverse fountain of youth. He's got a fountain of death.
I think it also that had a lot to do with the. That had a lot to do with the. I'm not ignoring your joke. It was funny.
Thank you.
But I think that had.
You're a scholar with a suede jacket on. You can't laugh at anything. Well, actually,
It's I forgot what I was going to say.
yes, I win.
That worked.
I mean, something.
Should I tell my joke again?
Okay. Yeah, maybe that'll.
No, I was going to say I think that with Mel Brooks movies, it's not just Mel Brooks. It has to do with the studios. Yeah. Like the studios had a different mentality back in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, they trusted the auteur a little bit.
Yeah, I think a little bit more. And then they were like, because I really see a change at about Life Stinks. And Robin Hood Men in Tights and things like that. But I even really saw that started to happen with Spaceballs. Ooh. And Spaceballs is a fan favorite. I'm not actually a fan of it.
Really?
I prefer the earlier stuff, but I saw that was where he started to get a little more into the airplane humor.
Right.
You know what I mean? The where it was like comb the desert, and you see someone combing with a big comb.
Yeah, a lot
like
of one-liner
kind of
type jokes as opposed to being part of.
Right. Whereas you saw like I think two of his greatest movies, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, were tributes to movies. Like they were tributes to movies that had happened before and genres that happened.
And they weren't just
get away
parodies,
with
they were
doing.
also satires of those genres as a whole.
And
something else, I mean, something those movies have in common too. I don't know if we can entirely chalk this up to this, but like Gene Wilder, Madeline Kahn, like the company that he had in the early days was like such a the best possible.
Would those films? I mean, I think we all agreed that Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, amazing films. But would our kids like those movies? I don't know. Like, did your daughter?
My daughter actually laughed a lot with Blazing Saddles. I mean, she understands. I mean,
the campfire scene. I'm sure she. No,
but she understands. Like anytime, like derogatory words came up. We explained it to her ahead of time. Like, this movie is actually kind of fighting against those things. And in fact, the co-writer of this movie, who wrote all those jokes, was Richard Pryor, who was supposed to play the sheriff.
Yeah, why is it he didn't?
The studio, he was having some very public drug issues.
It was around the fire, when he set himself afire.
Well, I think it was, but he had a number of those. Yeah. And and the studio said no.
Right. Oh.
And I'm actually kind of glad they did, because I love Richard Pryor.
He would have really pulled focus,
but I think that Cleveland Little was because he's just a little bit more uptight. There's something about him
and he looks like the hero more than
I suppose.
As Jason rightly pointed out, Richard Pryor would have pulled focus. He was too big of a star in some ways.
And it's an ensemble piece, really.
Yeah, and I'm glad they gave that to Cleveland, because that was really like his big role, and he didn't live. He died fairly young,
right?
True. So that was a really nice. And Richard Pryor did a lot of things, especially with Gene Wilder. So, yes, it would have been nice to have seen them in something together. But, no, I mean, you had a lot of fun things happening in that movie.
So, but why did so the question was, why did this not...
question.
Why this comedy, this
holds
album
up,
has aged so well compared to comedy movies?
Like their comedy movies or comedy
Not
movies in general?
Not necessarily. I think comedy
because
movies
I would argue this album holds up as well as a number of their early films.
Right, yes.
But general, like, there's so many disposable comedy movies now. Like, when was the last time... that you saw a film that gets called back and you quote, and it's rare now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe that's just our generation too. I mean, we might have in 30 years. Okay, let's go 20 years.
Calm down, Sean.
No, I'm talking about myself. I mean, I started watching comedy when I was quite young, and these things really impressed me. And now I look at it and go, like my kids when they're older, maybe they'll be quoting Bridesmaids. I don't know.
Well, the thing about it's a different age, and there's so much material now that you can't grab onto something before the next thing comes along.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. It's there for a weekend, and then what's the next thing?
Well,
that's not the same.
That's very much.
You don't have time for that reverie.
But I mean, the last film that I remember, like I'm trying to think of the most recent, like Princess Bride, maybe is the most current film I quote. I mean, like Spinal Tap. There's films that you quote and remember, and all the Monty Python films, of course. And
I would even say some of the early,
Ghostbusters.
the early, the Farley Brothers, even some of their earlier movies, like Dumb and Dumber. There's just some stuff that I will. When talking about the monkey or the Beatles,
so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, well, but I think this particular album does so well because it's the performances are strong enough to, and the material isn't dirty. It's not. It's something that everyone can sort of listen to.
Most
and
of it is
very natural.
dated. I think that's real key. Is to not date your material. A lot of these things are universal truths that still hold up today.
And they're just so natural.
Something interesting I noticed, and I don't know if it is a thing because I wasn't alive in 1960, but I just noticed when so some of the bits that would seem sort of dated in some ways, like may have been slightly ahead of their time. Like I'm thinking like the coffee house culture and like the and even like psychiatry I think is I guess like psychiatry had been around for a while, but I mean it isn't as obviously ubiquitous as it is now.
Well, it's interesting because coffee house culture has come back. I mean with Starbucks and everything else, and you go in there and there are people on there writing their screenplays, and it's a different culture, but it's
much more individual and internal now.
But it exists, and it's still something you can go, that's where the artists all go to hang out, right?
The other thing I think that is different from a lot of stuff we see today is the lack of irony. It's not self-congratulatory. It's not like the attitude of, well, this is stupid, so we're just doing it. Like it's very earnest and very sweet and very sincere.
Yes, that's exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head because none of us want to be. We all want to be cool. That culture of cool. And that time it was just be funny.
Yeah, these guys aren't cool at all. There's nothing. There's nothing cool on this album.
Yeah, but yet that makes them super cool.
But because you see that, like you go back to like they were playing years ago. They were playing on one of the Comedy Network, I think. They were playing all the old Jack Benny episodes,
so good.
And you really saw like you see all these actors, from Tom Poston and well, you see, but we know him from
Mindy's dad on Mork and Mindy.
Oh no, well he was the guy who lived downstairs.
Who
wrote,
he's lived downstairs. You're right.
He wrote greeting cards.
He was in Soap, and he was in.
He was on Newhart.
Right.
But to see him young and doing the same way,
wild.
Mr. Furley,
Right.
Don Knotts, and seeing these
so
guys and basically just doing bits.
Yeah.
They go on and do a bit
Yeah.
in character.
Yeah, it's like our Levi McDonald or Mark Little, our guys in Toronto doing Conan or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they go out and do these little bits, and I think that's we sort of we look at that and go, this is not a big epic thing. It's just coming on and doing a little 5 minutes of lighthearted character work that I think will never go out of style.
Right. Yeah. But people don't pursue that the same way because they want to be cool.
Yes.
But also, it's volume. I think volume is a big part of it too.
Yeah.
With YouTube stars, oh god, and Twitter comedians.
There's too
and,
much to weed through.
And so much gets marketed towards a young crowd.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a race to be as hip as possible.
Right.
And then everybody who's surrounded by this cool culture, they feel self-conscious and they feel they have to put on this facade of they don't care.
Yeah.
Because if they care and they fail, then they're not cool and they're stupid.
Yeah.
And so trying is almost the antithesis of being funny.
But I think at the same time as that, sometimes, a lot of people have that affect, whatever that approach. But then I think there's also this pressure now to have production values or to try and you can't something I really enjoyed listening to this album, especially with the crowd, was just how they were just simple. It felt like they were just sort of hanging out and making themselves laugh. And
and it was live, but there was probably no set or anything like that.
No.
I mean,
That's why Carl Reiner would always set it up. Right now we're here in the middle of a coffee house, and I'm going to go over to this table.
We see paintings all around.
Yeah,
And
every
there's a guy
time we
with
moved.
his-
And that's very common in live improv anyway, where they paint the scene. We don't have sets and costumes and all these things, and people buy it. They put it in their mind, and it works.
I think people just want to laugh, and ultimately, I don't know what the answer is, but
I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Nice, concise. Okay. Moving
Let's
on.
do the next one in a sentence.
How much importance do you place on material versus performance for Brooks and Reiner?
I would say much more on the performance. The performance is king
For those
these
two,
guys,
for sure.
You know, but then this is what we were talking about. It's we don't really have to visualize on Saturday Night Live. We get a lot of that same idea of people playing characters and doing sketches, and that's basically what they were. But we don't need to see them.
Right.
I would agree 100% performance in this case. Material was clearly improvised, and I loved the way they committed, but the jokes were they were like pops. It wasn't like a consistent, and that was the fun. You didn't know what was going to be funny.
Right.
But these two are just so charming, and they clearly love each other so much or like each other a lot. And
they could stay true to the characters in the unfunny moments, which I think is really neat.
Yes.
So you buy this whole world that they're setting up. But to me, also, you can't have one without the other with these
that's
guys.
fair,
I mean,
that's fair.
their performance, if they were performing different material, it wouldn't work. It's this perfect marriage of what they can do and what they can write.
Well,
they know what they're good
Your
at.
material
in both
has
ways.
to be strong to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, to
they
begin
write for
with,
their performance and they perform what they write, and it's just a.
But the fact that they don't even
cohesive.
You don't even get a feeling that they're writing anything.
Would
lean a little more towards performance, but it pulls in the other.
I mean, something that struck me again, not to bring it back to Judaism. Play that card.
Oy vey.
Here I go again. But because as I'm doing that, I feel so much when we're talking about the performance and the material, they have to support each other. But it was interesting listening to it. I was saying to Jason, I've listened to the album I guess three times now in the last couple of days. So this time I was sort of just paying attention and trying to imagine even if we couldn't hear the words, if we were just hearing the cadence of what they were saying and how they were saying it, I feel that there still would have been some pretty substantial laughs. One that strikes me is just the rhythm of the 42,000 kids, the wah 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 wah, 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 wah. Like, even if you just, like,
Yeah.
heard it like that, you would still get, like, you know.
Right,
the
yeah.
laughs
And then the way he
comfort
talks
the way
and-
that they're interacting with each other.
I kept waiting for the roles to reverse. I just assumed that Reiner would do something wacky,
yeah.
and you know.
Yeah, no, I
Brooks
agree
would be
with
the
you because he is
straight man.
very funny. In fact, Dan and I were talking about this outside, that Carl Reiner is also, if you listen to him now, I mean, he's 95 years old. He does sound more like
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Follow him on Twitter. He is so funny.
Carl Reiner, yeah, he's so
Yeah.
good.
So funny.
And a great character actor too. Like I mean,
Yeah.
he's gone on to do all kinds of stuff.
Well,
And
I
his
mean,
son,
he's-
of course. His
yeah.
son, he's got like the legacy, the family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's directed some very funny movies, like the
Yeah.
Jerk and
all the Steve Martin, or so many of the Steve Martin.
yeah, all the 80s ones, like the ones.
Yeah, Dumb Men
that-
Don't Wear Plaid. I believe he directed,
Yeah.
and I think The Man with Two Brains.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
Summer School.
Did he
What? He directs Summer School?
yes, he directed
Did
Summer
he?
School. And what
Mark
was the other
Harmon?
summer one? He did another summer
Oh,
one.
yeah, I
with-
can't even remember the
Summer.
other one.
Summer Bikini Girls
Summer
4.
Bikini Girls.
something like that.
No, but
You can't have all gold, right?
No.
well, but he has, you know, if you look at Mel Brooks movies, he has just as many hits as misses.
Yeah.
Mel
Yeah.
Brooks.
Oh yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, when these guys hit, they really hit, but when they miss,
But then-
like all of us.
But yeah, but like Carl Reiner, yeah, like we were saying, like Carl Reiner is almost affecting like his like Gentile, for lack of a better word, like like
Summer Rental.
Like,
That was the
Summer
other one.
Rental.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the other
John
one.
Candy.
Yes.
John Candy.
That's a
yeah.
fun movie.
Yeah, that one actually
Underrated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of being at the top of their game, and when they hit, they hit. Mel Brooks is one of only 12 people in the EGOT
yes.
club. The
oh, is he in the EGOT?
yeah,
EGOT.
he won an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony.
The producers as a musical definitely.
Oh, okay,
helped them
okay.
out for a few
Yeah.
of those, I think.
But he
Yeah.
was always, I mean, if you look at History of the World, the musical numbers in that are really fun.
Oh yeah, the fantastic
like
production.
Madeline Kahn going through and no, yes, and basically going through the soldiers' anatomy.
yes.
Or even in Blazing Saddles with the whole, well, again with Madeline Kahn, the Lillian
Yeah.
Stuck.
Oh,
stuff.
and the Busby Berkeley type number.
Yeah, the
at
big
end.
Busby
Like-
Berkeley kind of stuff is you know, it's
Super fun.
so fun. With Dom DeLuise, throw out your hands, put out your tush.
Not in the face.
All right, next question. Considering this is one of the earliest comedy albums, how do you feel this influenced those who followed? That's a tough one.
Well,
I
you
mean,
know what? It's interesting because it's a comedy album of a different ilk.
It
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
I was here for the Bob Newhart one, which was
Right.
actually interesting because it wasn't unlike this, except Bob Newhart interviewed himself.
It's a one-man
You know what I mean?
show, yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like it was a lot of he relied on the back and forth of his characters.
Well, even with him though, you would sometimes there'd be silence. Like he didn't play the other character he was.
Yeah,
talking
he like on
to.
the end of the
You
phone
only
or what
heard
have
one
you.
end.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it's not a stand-up album, clearly, and
Mm-hmm.
comedy albums. I mean, I didn't hear the Elaine May.
Mike Nichols. Yeah,
Mike
that
Nichols
was more
one.
of a sketch album as well.
What's Mars? Yeah. So I don't know how to affect it. I mean, there aren't that many sketch albums
Mm-hmm.
or improv albums anymore of any knownness. I guess they're all stand-up.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, I didn't see it until because I'm not a huge fan of Adam Sandler, but my kids are watching the Transylvania movies, right? The
Right.
Hotel
Yeah, Hotel
Transylvania.
Transylvania.
And the second one, Mel Brooks does the voice of the grandfather,
Right.
who is the father of Sandler's vampire. And I was thinking, oh my God, I don't think that Sandler did well with it, but yeah, that's just an opinion. But I do see that there was sort of a side. I think that Mel Brooks sort of gave a lot of young Jewish comics in a different era, sort of hope that they could play that character. They could come out and be, this, with all the
Go ahead, say
it. With all the accent and the whole
The isms.
the isms, and they could So there's even an influence there. I think of if not, taken the right way, it's still I can see the influence.
No, and I definitely think that like it's funny. Like I talked about it before. I mean, the way I think I framed it earlier was the idea that they took the stuff that they were doing in like the back rooms and parties and like brought it to a mass audience. But it is funny to think of like. Yeah, like again, like the early Jewish comics, like they were working, in the Catskill, like they were working for mostly Jewish audiences, and then they were so it was like playing to their own people,
Right.
and then doing stuff,
Yeah.
and then playing their own people Jews, and then their own people comics.
Right.
And then with this album, and like, and all the things that followed in your show of shows, it's like, oh, no, this will be funny for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think there is some of that.
Yeah.
Like,
And at that time, things could just explode a little bit more easily because
Yeah.
there weren't constantly things exploding all around you. So if something was good, it got around quickly. There was just that one thing that was happening right now that people would talk about for a few weeks, and then it would get audiences, and then then you get a TV show or something. Like there was it was more of a direct trajectory.
Well,
it still wasn't guaranteed.
In 1960, their television was just like
In its
hardly in
infancy, for
infancy.
sure, yeah.
That's the word. And Nichols and May and Bob Newhart, that all happened before TV was really a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as TV became a thing, I think that's where all of this kind of comedy moved to.
Right.
And stand-up comedy albums, because stand-up is just joke telling, in the sense that can be audio or visual. Like, it's actually some cases visual is not important. But so maybe that's, I don't know when the transition happened, 1970s somewhere. But I don't know when the last great improv or sketch album happened. But I think it came down to the birth of television, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. Once there was a picture, people looked at it.
And once there, and once there was,
That's about it.
but with Mel Brooks, once there was a picture, he put together his company.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Madeline Kahn and Harvey Korman and
Yeah, they hit the
and
ground
there was
running.
a bunch of them, and they did all the movies, and then they influenced other people as well. So it's kind of
far
just
reaching.
spread out, yeah.
and likewise, Carl Reiner.
And Carl Reiner,
absolutely.
yeah, well, right, and Carl Reiner, again, his son also did a lot. Really reached a huge audience with Princess Bride and
Spinal Tap.
Spinal
Yeah.
Tap,
Yeah.
All in the family as
Yeah,
well.
and All in the Family,
Yeah.
and
Meathead,
Meathead.
yeah.
And come to think of it, it hadn't occurred to me until this moment, but he also did a lot to bring basically improvised comedy to an
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah,
following
yeah.
that
That's
tradition.
very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Spinal
Like
Tap
invented
was
the
quite
mockumentary.
groundbreaking.
Oh, Spinal
yeah.
Tap, yeah.
Yeah.
I put my hand in my heart because, Spinal Tap.
For the people at home.
And it wasn't Harry Met Sally his? Isn't that
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
that
Rob Reiner
was,
too,
a
yeah.
pretty groundbreaking
Yeah.
romantic comedy, I'd say as well.
Oh, he became the romantic comedy king. Didn't he?
True.
Sleepless in
Sleepless in
Seattle?
Seattle,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, he was doing really well up till North. North was the went south.
I don't even know North. I don't even know North.
You can coin me on
You
that.
did
I
some
just came up with
Googling.
it.
You did
I
some
just
Googling.
came up with it.
Yeah, but I'm sure not a lot of people even remember that movie. There are a lot of people in that movie.
I haven't even seen it, but it got
Yeah, I
a
haven't
lot of
either.
bad press.
Elijah Wood, Bruce Willis, Jason
should've been,
Alexander. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a shame. Next question. You mentioned how these two are best friends and work with each other so well, and you can tell they truly enjoy each other. Do they have modern equivalents? Two performers who are clearly best friends and are great at performing together.
Key and Peele.
Yeah.
Key and Peele,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
mean,
that's
maybe-
an
I
excellent example.
Yeah. Well done.
Matt just looked at me like,
Well,
yes,
Read
yes,
along with Browning.
I believe there is.
Plug.
not comedy, and maybe not culturally appropriate right now, but Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yeah, sure.
I am.
They won Oscars.
But they were childhood friends, and they're not comedy, but they're kind of that. Sometimes it's rare that a really strong friendship turns into a great performance.
And also in Britain it happened a lot, like Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, Dudley Moore and Peter Cook, who were amazing together.
Well, there's also the Franco and his cadre of goofballs.
But I think that it all boils down to Sean Browning and Matthew Reed,
The epitome.
The pinnacle.
best friends that perform so well together.
Yeah.
I wonder were Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner friends before they started becoming comedy partners, or
I think I do. Like I was reading about this, and I think they did. Yeah, I think they knew
so
each
they were
other
friends
beforehand.
before, and then they started
because they
doing
each had a
comedy.
career before. Like Carl Reiner was doing a lot of stand up before they did this. So
Yeah. Like they came to your show of shows independently, didn't? Or
yeah, I think so.
Mid-50s.
Yeah.
but I don't. Yeah, like I think that was like they didn't come as a comedy duo. They just happened. To
Yeah.
And they were
Intersect there.
super young. At the
But it's
time.
amazing how when you find somebody to perform with and you just you have that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and writing becomes so easy because you're just trying to make the other guy laugh.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
And then you go,
Farley
other
and
people are going
Spade
to laugh, and
maybe
we
had
laugh.
some of that. David Spade and Chris Farley,
Yeah.
they did
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
movies together.
Yeah.
French and Saunders in England, back to England.
Yeah.
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 And even in Mel
Mitchell
Brooks
and Webb.
movies
Mitchell
alone, Richard Pryor and
Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did 4 movies together or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Silver
And they
Streak.
were very good friends, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Aykroyd and Belushi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these days,
Interesting
modern-
question. You got to think of the ponder the.
Yeah, we're going
Well,
through
it
the
is hard
decades
because
here.
even if you are, I think Key and Peele is a good example
that's probably
because
the most
current
modern,
example,
popular
yeah.
version.
it's they're kind of getting through it a little bit more than others. You can have you can have the greatest chemistry, but now studios are so much like cutting things off that it's
Yeah.
like, well, this would be really good, but could we get that guy, your
Yeah.
best friend?
Mitchell and
Played
Webb, though,
by
in Britain,
Soto.
they started out with, I think, the Mitchell and Webb Sound, which was like a radio comedy show. Then they did the Mitchell and Webb Look, and then they did another TV show. I can't remember the name of it.
Peep
but-
Show.
Peep Show, yeah. And then there might be something even newer than that. So these two guys, the BBC keeps throwing money at them to.
Yeah. Well,
To make
and
stuff, and they work
Matt
great.
Lucas, Little Britain, Matt Lucas and Dave
Oh,
Williams,
yeah,
another
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
The
And,
South Park guys.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
true,
yeah.
yeah.
Trey Parker.
Matt Stone.
And
Trey Parker,
uh,
Matt Stone, yeah.
And the Matt Berry of Toast of London, and I can't think of the name of the writer that he writes it with, but they have a long history of doing
What
stuff.
is, let's
like
just,
that.
this is just list time now.
Yeah,
We're
yeah. So look all those guys up.
So those are the
You
12
can't go
to
wrong.
15 modern pairs.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't
And
go
read
wrong
along
with any of
Browning. Did I put that in there already?
I guess it remains to be seen if they'll be friends in 80 years. But
Well, it was funny. Anyway, yeah, we don't need to dwell on too much, but it was funny when we were doing the list, and it's like a lot of those American pairings. It's like, some of those, there were a fair number of overdoses in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Way to bring it down, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny
note.
because again, looking at this, coming back to Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, where it's it is such a relationship, at least in this album, where one was giving all the focus to the other, which I guess often that relationship in
Straight
comedy
man,
people
yeah.
can be pretty, maybe happens in more
well-
people who are self-destructive and need propping up, like the way I think Aykroyd did with Belushi.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
And it
Spade
happened a
probably
lot.
did Farley.
Right back going to Laurel and Hardy and
Oh, yeah.
and Abbott
Well, the best
Costello.
stuff
There's-
has two polar opposites,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That's
well,
what's
straight
interesting
man
to
and-
watch.
yeah.
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 Anyway.
All right. Well, there we go. We've solved all the comedy problems. We've answered all the questions. So thanks again to my guest, Dan Hirschfield. You can find on Twitter at danhirschfield.com.
No C.
D-A-N Yeah, S-E-R. Sorry. I just spelled it completely wrong. DANHERSHFIELD, where you can find jokes and whatnot. Oh, there was a great joke you said today. About why did Adele cross the road? I'll let you do the punchline.
Let me see if I can remember it. Why did Adele cross the road? Oh, to sing "Hello from the Other Side."
How good is that? That's a great joke. Good night. And thanks to Martha O'Neill. You can find her on Twitter at Martha_O'Neill. No apostrophe. They don't allow that.
And then 2 L's.
2 L's. Martha_O'Neill. And you can find my friend Sean Browning at SEAN, like Sean Connery, Sean_Browning. And the website is.
Well, it will be. We're just working on it right now. It's coming up. It's just www.readalongwithbrowning.com.
REID.
Yes.
ALONGWITHBRO.
What, that URL wasn't taken? I'm sure.
Brown with an ING. Yes.
So thanks to all my guests, and remember, you can find us, Comedy Album Book Club, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, or your favorite podcast application. So please subscribe, rate, and review. And you can also find us on our website at comedyalbumbookclub.com, on Twitter at CABC Podcast, and on Facebook. If you follow along, you can ask questions for future podcasts and suggest albums and guests, so please do that. We record this show live after listening to the album the first Thursday of every month here at the Social Capital Theatre, and our proceeds always go to the Toronto Covenant House, Canada's largest homeless youth agency. Next month, we will be back here on March 1st when we'll find out why my guest, writer and comedian Ian McIntyre, chose the album Werewolves and Lollipops by Patton Oswalt. Until then, I'm your host, Jason DeLine. Thank you for listening and or attending Comedy Album Book Club.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Swimsuit? Check. Sunscreen? Check. Phone charger? Check. Don't forget to pack the 5-Hour Energy. It fits great in a pocket or carry-on, and the alert feeling will help you arrive ready for anything. Now get 20% off when you use code 5HETRAVEL at 5hourenergy.com. Expires April 30th. One-time use only. Not valid with other discounts. Remember, visit 5hourenergy.com and use code 5HETRAVEL to save 20%.